Bilam, a prophet from a foreign land and a foreign nation, is hired by Balak to do in the efforts and to destroy or to obstruct the perpetuation of the Jewish people. And all of us are familiar with the fact that rather than the klalot, the curses that came out of Bilam's mouth, which was supposed to undo Bnei Yisrael and destroy their further course, were turned, or the words were turned into brachot, blessings as we classically know them. But in actuality, some of these were not so much blessings as much as direction for Am Yisrael to embrace and to internalize, which ultimately can turn into blessings as well. And one of the famous psukim, or parts of the psukim that we are familiar with, that Bilam utters with regards to the Jewish people, he says, Hein am levadad yishkon, pasuk tet perek chaf gimel. Hein am levadad yishkon ubagoyim lo yitchashav. They, the Jewish people, are an am, a nation that dwell ubagoyim, and amongst the presumably Gentilian world or the further expansive nations, lo yitchashav. They are not necessarily paid attention to. Now, we know that the Jewish people were persecuted consistently throughout generations. So what exactly do these words mean? All of us are familiar with the words of the Netziv Mivolozhin in Ha'amek Davar, in which he explains that as long as we are Am Levadad Yishkon, as long as we remain isolated, as long as we maintain our identity, Levadad, Bidud, very appropriate to what we're going through now, isolating ourselves, maintaining that identity, ubagoyim lo yitchashav, then the goyim, the foreign nations, will be more understanding to us. In other words, as long as we don't look to assimilate, or we avoid assimilation within the confines of other nations, that will preserve ourselves and will allow us to perpetuate as a Jewish nation. However, I saw another interesting idea that relates to this based on Rav Shamshan Rafal Hirsch. The Rashar Hirsch explains that we must differentiate between the two terms that exist within the context of this one blessing. Hein am levadad yishkon, am ubagoyim lo yitchashev, goy. There are two terms referring to nations here. One is an am, a nation, and the other is a goy, a nation as well. What is the difference between the two? Says the Rashar Hirsch as follows. A goy has extensive parameters. It is multi-dimensional. Its interest is the expansion and the development of an empire. It longs to be expansive and as such impact the world both physically and perhaps theologically as well. But an am is something that is more insular. It is an internal body. Its dimensions are national, ideological. Its focus is not multi-dimensional, but rather one-dimensional. The power of an am is not because it is expansive, but rather because it is inherently effective. An am, therefore, looks internally. It doesn't look necessarily to affect all other nations around it, but it realizes that its strength begins from within. It must be a moral, sound, just, proper society first, in order to have effect on itself, to build its own moral fiber and roots and foundations, and only then, as a result of being that example, can other nations learn from it as well. Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, have never looked and never are part of a conversion or longing to convert others process. They never proselytize. Rather, Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, are expected to look at who we are, how we and how our own family grows, how we as one nation, as one family, as one small portion of this world can impact ourselves and ultimately, therefore, serve as an example for others without force. As the Isha Shunamit said to Elisha Hanavi, Betoch Ami Anochi Yoshavet. We are sitting amongst our own nation, within ourselves, internally, searching for a deeper meaning and understanding of our existential existence. The success of Bnei Israel has very little to do with the world at large. Our success is based on how we behave amongst ourselves. When we learn to embrace and to understand and incorporate in our lives as a nation tolerance to one another, consideration to one another, derech eretz, proper behavior and sensitivity to one another, then not only will that allow us to expand ourselves as our own nation and our own efforts, but it will have impact on the world around us. As we enter this period this week, on Thursday of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, the 3 weeks, in which we begin the mourning period of the destruction of the 2 temples of the Beit HaMikdash, which adorned Yerushalayim, we all know that a large part of the problem that led to, or part of what led to the destruction of the Batei HaMikdash was the fact that there was internal strife, that we did not demonstrate love and compassion and patience and consideration and derech eretz, both in terms of our own Jewish leadership and in terms of the nation at large. Let us hope and pray that this time, this message of Hein Am Levadad Yishkon, we should be able to be Shochen Ad, we should always dwell in the land of Israel, dwell as a Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, within the tent of Yaakov, within the confines of a Yisrael, remembering who we are, preserving our Torah and what it stands for, and as a result, being Zoche truly to witness the reconstruction of Yerushalayim B'meira B'yameinu. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.